Hello everyone and welcome back to the Rocky Marathon. When we last left off, we had finished the main Rocky series with its 5 movies. It was quite a task and it took me quite a long while to get it done. Now, when I started the marathon, there was only one more Rocky movie in existence, Rocky Balboa. But during my hiatus, a new spin-off emerged in the form of the Creed movies. And since I feel like I've spent more than enough time talking about the same saga, I decided to make this the last review of the marathon, in which I'll review all 3 spin-off Rocky movies. I'll start with Rocky Balboa and then jump off to the Creed movies with a more two-in-one approach. So, without further ado, let's start this extravaganza with the 2006 movie Rocky Balboa. It is no surprise to anyone that Rocky V is widely considered the worst Rocky movie in existence. The subpar plot, shaky acting, and ridiculously forced situations made the much-awaited Rocky finale a critical and commercial flop. This in turn left not only the fans, but Stallone as well, wishing for a chance to try again and end Rocky's story in a more fulfilling and appropriate way. Yes, Stallone himself publicly stated that he disliked the final product and that he was negligent during its production. Now, in spite of these wishes to right the wrongs, everyone would also agree that the Rocky saga was suffering quite a lot of franchise fatigue. 5 movies during steady intervals over 14 years was more than enough for now. If there was to be a new Rocky film, it would have to be during a special occasion and with enough of a cool down so that the public wouldn't be too biased as to not even see it. This ended up in the production of Rocky Balboa, to be released in 2006, 30 years after the very first movie. Having such a long time between films made sure that there was close to no franchise fatigue. In fact, the Rocky series was close to being something mythical. People looked back fondly to it despite of its flaws. It was a beloved household name. One thing did, however, tip the scales towards the negative. Rocky was just too old. Will he still fight? I mean, he has to. He is still the titular character. The movie has to be about Rocky. And if it has to be about Rocky, it usually needs 2 major elements: well thought out and profound character-driven drama, and Rocky overcoming an immense physical and psychological hurdle, usually in a boxing match. With a graying Rocky, is that really achievable? Right from the start of the movie, it's clear to us that it wants to convey a serious and toned-down Rocky movie, with the first scene being focused on a gray, slow winter morning for Rocky, in which he is shown not only as older, weaker, but also less proactive compared to his other appearances. This isn't only due to old age, but also to the death of his wife, Adrian. I think this is a great direction right away, showing not only an older, physically weakened Rocky, but also a much more dead Rocky. Adrian was his light in so many senses. Without her, Rocky becomes much more, well, pathetic. And I think that's the best way to present him now. With Rocky V, the angle was poverty, but that just doesn't work with a character that was raised poor. Besides, money shouldn't be his drive. Now love and loss always resonated with Rocky's character. So, no longer a fighter, he now owns a restaurant named after his late wife, on the same old neighborhood. He is surrounded not only by people and artifacts of his glory days, but he also resigns himself to living in those moments for quite a bit. It is absolutely saddening, pitiful, seeing not only Rocky but also Paulie in this desolate and solitary state after losing Adrian, both taking it all in their own different ways. As for his son, he became your regular salaryman office worker, goes out with his friends to the bar after work, regular 9-to-5 guy. Quite the contrast from Father Dearest, and the movie rams you with that parallel, even touching on character tropes from the 5th film. The major points of the movie during its first moments are all about this saddened state that everyone we know is in, how it all didn't end up having the storybook ending. But we also see Rocky trying to break his downward emotional spiral, engaging with an old acquaintance, a little girl he used to know, now a single mother doing her best to provide. How Rocky engages with both her and her son show how he is willing to heal and finally let the past go. But that is on the emotional side. We still have the sportsman side of Rocky to address. And so the movie does start to shift its focus on the sports part of the plot, with the current heavyweight champion being overall disliked, heck, Boxing as a whole seems to be a target for critics, saying the sport had basically been on its last legs, with fights lacking heart, real entertainment, and emotional value, which of course leads to comparisons to the good old days when Rocky fought. One such comparison between Rocky and the current champ leads to his managers attempting to get Rocky and the champ in the ring for an exhibition to truly have a passing of the torch to the newest generation of boxers. It all seems well and good except for one thing. Rocky's in his 50s, pushing 60 by now. Here the movie really wants you to suspend your disbelief, as he ends up accepting to truly let it all out, leaving all of the past behind and facing tomorrow with no fears or regrets. This is basically the overall plot of the movie. To scour it more would be pointless, because we already know it. Well-made training montages, character arcs involving falling out and reuniting, and the big fight, which is overall well choreographed, but has one major flaw for me: its presentation. During all of the fight, right from the beginning of the locker room scenes, the movie shifts its style to that of a live pay-per-view boxing match on ESPN. This decision still leaves me dumbfounded to this day, because it has no positives in my view. It removes the public from the intimate and personal feeling we could have during the fight. It makes the climax ordinary, like actual television. Any suspense that built itself up is immediately dispersed with the views of brand names, sports TV graphics. The live TV approach is just detrimental to the whole scene. But in regards to the whole package, I would have to say that this is a solid Rocky movie, and quite a satisfying conclusion for his story, especially since we saw how bad it could have been with Rocky V. This time, the flaws are for the most part minor. The characters took an interesting development. The drama and sadness don't feel as forced or ridiculous even. It's really, well, dramatic. The insight we get not only on Rocky's current state but on his character as a whole with this edition is truly interesting and well-fitting. So, taking into consideration story, directing, acting, setting, music, and my own personal enjoyment of the movie, I decided to give Rocky Balboa a 7 out of 10, a much more deserving finale to Rocky's story, even with its missteps. This one really succeeded where the previous fell short. With Rocky Balboa done, it was expected that the franchise would be put to bed. No more loose ends. Rocky's character arc seemed quite complete. The fans were satisfied. It was a dignified ending. All this just made everyone even more surprised when rumors of a new Rocky movie were being confirmed. The existence of Creed is a really strange one to me. Honestly, the only appropriate reason I can see for these movies existing is to get money in this golden age of sequels and reboots. Whatever the main reason may be, the fact is that a new generation of Rocky movies began in 2015 with the movie Creed. As the title would suggest, the main focus of this movie isn't Rocky anymore. Already a good move, because there really was no need to return to his story. Now we have one of Creed's sons, an illegitimate one in fact, that gets adopted by Apollo's wife quite a few years after his death. Already this just brings out a weird character trait that was never addressed in any way. Apollo cheated on his wife. It isn't treated as something too detrimental in the movie, but it still is an uncomfortable revelation to just create a plot for the movie, because the main character needs to be somehow connected to the original characters. The name of this bastard child is Adonis, another parallel that I find quite forced. After being adopted, he lived a life of luxury, needing nothing more and wanting less, except the need to fight. Adonis is something of a part-time underground boxer. Even if he has some talent, he can't see himself going pro due to the fact that his mother obviously opposes it. Even so, he quits his job and chases his dream in the true spirit of Americana. After failed tryouts at other gyms, he turns to finding Rocky to train him, and although their initial chemistry is a bit shaky and weird, I have to say I enjoyed seeing this Rocky. He seems fulfilled, done with fighting, living his best life day by day, meaning the last film was not ignored. Rocky does agree to train him, hiding the fact that Adonis is Creed's son in order for him to be his own fighter. He starts getting wins and gets the attention of the light heavyweight champ that wants to fight Adonis until he has to go to jail. In a way, it mirrors the first Rocky and Creed fight. Besides the fight, there is only one major plot point the movie focuses on, besides the mandatory romantic subplot. It's that Rocky is faced with his own mortality. This time, outside the ring, and it isn't brain damage as it would be expected. He has cancer, and being the last of his generation of friends, and the fact that chemo didn't work for his wife, he is reluctant to be treated. Too bad the movie has so much to do and not enough time, so these parts seem to be quite a bit rushed in favor of getting to the fight. The final match is nicely done. Unfortunately, it still has some parts of the Rocky Balboa fight with the live TV presentation, but that's a little bit toned down. And the more realistic boxing is a wonder to behold. The climax ends up being basically the first Rocky fight, which is a bit expected, but still nice to see. The movie also ends in a hopeful and victorious way for both Rocky and Adonis. The unprecedented success of Creed made a sequel obligatory, this time with even more nostalgic comebacks with everyone's favorite Russians, the Dragos. All in all, this movie is a good sequel to Adonis' story, but it's also incredibly predictable for Rocky standards. I won't be spoiling this one though, being still a fresh release and not even being out for purchase. I'll just go ahead and say that it really is the Rocky II of the Creed movies. It fulfills its job as a sequel, creates good resolutions, and even the somewhat forced or predictable outcomes are still somewhat satisfying to watch. The fighting choreography also improved again, which really is an highlight for these newest movies, and the acting chemistry improves a bit. Except with the Dragos, it's clear that they haven't been in that role for a while. So, taking in consideration story, directing, acting, setting, music, and my own personal enjoyment of the movies, I decided to give Creed a 7.5 out of 10 and Creed 2 a 7 out of 10. They are strong spin-offs, and if this series does become the new Rocky, I wouldn't be too mad. After all, the storytelling that Rocky introduced to cinema has been immortal in other medias. The underdog drama is always captivating, to see the human condition thrive in face of a challenge bigger than itself, to try its best. It's a kind of story easy to connect with, so it's no wonder that this newest series is doing so well. It still has those foundations that built a legendary movie series. And that's all for me today. The Rocky Marathon is finally over, and I'll once again return to my normal format of reviews. I honestly don't have a movie yet in mind, but a review will come next week. See you then.